When were you grateful to be proven wrong? I thought my dad was completely wasting his life working as a night shift security guard at some random warehouses downtown. I was 19 and fresh out of high school with this huge chip on my shoulder about how smart I was. Dad would come home at 7 in the morning smelling like coffee and looking exhausted, and I'd be getting ready for my college classes thinking I was so much better than him. He'd worked the same job for 12 years, making barely enough to keep our apartment and put food on the table. I kept telling him he should apply for better jobs, maybe try to get into management somewhere, anything but walking around empty buildings all night like some kind of zombie. You're 45 years old, Dad. Don't you want more than this? I'd say, pointing at his wrinkled uniform shirt. He'd just shrug and say, "It pays the bills, kiddo. Not everyone gets to chase dreams." That pissed me off even more because I thought he'd given up on himself. Here I was, taking business classes and planning this amazing career, and my own father couldn't even be bothered to try harder. One night in October, I decided to drive to his work around 2 in the morning to bring him dinner because he'd forgotten his lunch. I figured I'd also get a good look at just how boring and pointless his job really was. The warehouse district was completely dead except for a few homeless people hanging around. I found the building where Dad worked and walked up to the security booth expecting to find him watching TV or sleeping. Instead, I found him helping this homeless guy named Pete clean up a cut on his hand. Dad had a whole first aid kit spread out on his desk, and he was being super gentle with this old man who was clearly drunk and rambling about Vietnam. "There you go, Pete. That should hold until morning. You know the drill. Stay away from that broken fence behind Building C." After Pete left, Dad noticed me standing there with the sandwich I'd brought him. I asked him what that was all about, and he got this embarrassed look on his face. "Oh, that's just Pete. He comes by most nights. Vietnam vet, has some issues, but he's harmless." But as the night went on, I saw more. A woman named Janet showed up around 3, scared because her ex-boyfriend was following her home from her late shift at the diner. Dad walked her to her car and followed her home to make sure she got inside safely. Around 4, he got a call from Mrs. Kim, who owned the Korean restaurant next to one of his buildings. Her alarm was going off, but she was too scared to check it alone. Dad drove over there with her and walked through the whole restaurant to make sure everything was okay. Turned out a stray cat had knocked over some pans in the back. "How often does this stuff happen?" I asked. "Every night's different," he said, "but people know they can call me if they're in trouble. Police take forever to get down here, if they come at all." By 5 in the morning, I'd watched my dad help 7 different people. He knew everyone's names, their problems, their stories. The homeless guys, the late shift workers, the business owners who couldn't afford fancy security systems. That's when I realized my dad wasn't just a security guard. He was like the unofficial mayor of this entire neighborhood. People trusted him, relied on him, felt safe because he was there. Janet later told me that Dad had scared off her ex 3 different times and helped her get a restraining order. Mrs. Kim said he'd prevented 2 break-ins at her restaurant just by being visible and checking on things. Pete told me Dad had probably saved his life twice by getting him to the hospital when his diabetes got bad. "Your dad's a good man," Pete said. "He don't judge nobody, just helps." The next week, Dad got offered a day shift supervisor job at some office building that paid $3 more an hour. Better hours, cleaner environment, more respect. He turned it down. When I asked him why, he said, "Who's gonna look out for Pete? Who's gonna make sure Janet gets home safe?" I graduated college 2 years later and got that business job I'd always wanted. Good salary, nice office, impressive title. But I've never felt as useful or necessary as my dad does every single night, just by showing up and caring about people everyone else ignores.